My little brother is nonverbal and has never communicated. When he saw me crying after my dad screamed at me, he took my phone and typed his first ever words. Are you okay? My little brother Leo lives in a world without words. He's 7 years old, and in those 7 years he's never spoken. Not a single sound. Doctors have given us a dozen labels and theories, but all I know is him. His language isn't one you hear, it's one you feel. A gentle tug on my sleeve means he's hungry. A soft hum deep in his throat means he's happy. And when he's scared, he just finds my hand and holds it tight. For years, I've been his translator, his protector, his bridge to a world that demands words he doesn't have. Our dad never understood that. To him, Leo's silence wasn't a condition. It was a problem. A puzzle he couldn't solve, which made him angry. His voice was a constant storm in our quiet little house, and I was the umbrella that shielded Leo from the rain. Yesterday, the storm hit me instead. It started, as it always did, over something small. A progress report from school had found its way onto the kitchen table. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't perfect. A B- in chemistry. My dad saw it before I had a chance to hide it. His face hardened, and the air in the room grew thick and heavy. A B-? His voice boomed, rattling the plate I was holding. Do you know how much I sacrificed for that school? Do you have any idea? I just stood there staring at the floor. I know, Dad. I'm trying. You're not trying hard enough, he yelled, slamming his hand on the table. Leo, who had been quietly drawing at the other end, flinched. You spend all your time coddling him, he said, gesturing at Leo without even looking at him. You're so busy being his little mother that you're forgetting to have a life of your own. You're throwing your future away for him. That's when the dam broke. A sob tore through my chest, hot and raw. It wasn't about the grade. It was about the injustice. The accusation that loving my brother was a waste of my life. I couldn't take it. I turned and ran to my room, the sound of his shouting following me down the hall. I slammed the door and collapsed onto my bed, burying my face in my pillow as years of frustration and hurt poured out of me. I cried for myself, for the pressure of always having to be perfect. But mostly, I cried for Leo, for the way my dad saw him not as a son, but as a burden. A few minutes later, I felt a small dip on the edge of my bed. I didn't have to look up. I knew it was Leo. I felt a gentle pat on my back. It was his way of saying, I'm here. I just kept crying, unable to stop the flood. He stood there for a long moment. I heard a soft rustle and then silence. I figured he'd left, probably overwhelmed by the sounds of my grief. But then my phone, which was lying on my nightstand, buzzed. I ignored it. It buzzed again, a persistent, gentle vibration. Through my tear-soaked haze, I rolled over and glanced at the screen. It was a notification from the Notes app. A new note had been created. My brow furrowed. I hadn't opened my Notes app in weeks, and then I saw the text on the screen. 3 small words typed out slowly and deliberately in the default font. Are you okay? I stopped breathing. My tears froze on my cheeks. I stared at the words, reading them over and over, my mind unable to process what I was seeing. I slowly lifted my head and looked at my brother. He was standing beside my bed, holding my phone in his small hands, his big brown eyes fixed on me. His expression was a mixture of intense concentration and a deep, gut-wrenching worry. For 7 years, he had been silent. For 7 years, he had watched the world, taking it all in without a single word. And the first thing he chose to say, the very first time he broke his silence, was not to ask for something, not to say his own name, but to check on me, to make sure I was okay. He found his voice not for himself, but for me. A new wave of tears came, but these were different. They weren't born of sadness or anger. They were tears of pure, overwhelming love. I reached out and pulled him into a hug, holding him so tight he could feel every beat of my shattered, healing heart. I held my phone in one hand, his first words glowing in the dark room, and my brother in the other. His silence was never empty. It was just full of a love so powerful it didn't need words. Until I did.